Three big developments in the Trump administration's mass deportation efforts. One, the Supreme Court extended the pause against removal of Venezuelan migrants without due process. Justices ruled 7-2 that migrants must be given more time to challenge deportation under the Alien Enemies Act. Two, a Maryland judge said the administration has not made a good faith effort to comply with a court order to show what steps are being taken to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia from El Salvador. And three, a startling remark during the Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship. The Solicitor General said the government is not obligated to obey all rulings of lower courts.
Did I understand you correctly to tell Justice Kagan that the government wanted to reserve its right to maybe not follow a Second Circuit precedent, say, in New York, because you might disagree with the opinion?
Our general practice is to respect those precedents, but there are circumstances when it is not a categorical practice. As I understand it, long-standing policy of the Department of Justice, yes, that we generally, as it was phrased to me, generally respect circuit precedent, but not necessarily in every case.
Joining me now, Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney, now University of Alabama law professor and an MSNBC legal analyst. We generally respect, Joyce. Interesting wording there. Do you expect the administration to follow any new guidance on due process for migrants, especially since the actual rules will not be written by the Supreme Court?
So I think that's actually the real issue in all of these cases. There's a very real sense that we are slowly moving towards the moment where the government will go into flagrant disobedience of a court order. And that, of course, is one way of contemplating the constitutional crisis that's been bandied about. In many ways, the government right now is not in full compliance, but they've at least cloaked their activity in legal options, in legal excuses. We're headed towards this moment where the Solicitor General of the United States tells a justice of the Supreme Court the government doesn't have to always follow court orders. And look, Alex, I spent 25 years at the Justice Department. I'll tell you unequivocally, the Justice Department's policy is that when a court makes a decision, the government is obligated to follow it. If you don't like it, you can appeal it. But when the courts speak, that's final. That's how the Constitution is set up, with three branches of government. The Justice Department is part of the executive branch. The courts get to weigh in on the legality of executive branch action.
So why is this Justice Department different?
Yeah, I mean, culture is set from the top down, right? And when you have a president who doesn't respect the law and the rule of law, and when it conflicts with his hopes, his personal aspirations, he's willing to set the rule of law aside. This is what you end up with. And the question is why there are people, why there are lawyers who were previously well thought of, who are experienced, who understand the rule of law and the implications of what they're doing. Why are these folks willing to throw in with Donald Trump and the utter lawlessness of it? That, I think, is one of the questions we still don't have an answer to.
Let's talk about Senate Judiciary Democrats who are pressing Republican Committee Chair Chuck Grassley for a hearing on the lack of due process in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. And the federal judge hearing the case said yesterday that the government's refusal to provide information has been an exercise in utter frustration. Well, here's Garcia's attorney.
They've given a sum total of 5 sentences of information as to the steps that they've been taking to carry out the Supreme Court's order that they return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. And meanwhile, at the same time, all of the defendants in the case, Kristi Noem, Rubio, Bondi, are all going on TV every chance they get to say that they're not going to bring him back.
So the government's now claiming that state secrets prevent them from providing information to the court. What options does the judge have?
There's some important legal nuance here, and it's this notion that the government, for a long time, right, developed through case law, sometimes developed through statute, has the ability to assert privileges that prevent it from having to turn over information. State secrets is one, the deliberative privilege for decision-making inside of the White House is another. And the government has thrown up a lot of different privileges here to avoid turning over information that the courts have ordered the government to turn over to Abrego Garcia's lawyers. And here's the problem. Here's the difficult needle that the judge will have to thread. The government gets to assert those privileges, and that sort of ends the inquiry. But there has to be a basis for the government to assert those privileges. That's what she seemed to be driving towards in this hearing, saying, okay, if you've got a legitimate state secrets privilege, you need to explain to me the legal and factual bases for asserting it here. And that's where the rubber will hit the road in this case.
Okay. Former FBI Director James Comey was questioned by Secret Service last night after Trump and his allies accused him of calling for President Trump's assassination in his now deleted Instagram post. And it featured the numbers 8647. 86, i.e. get rid of, and 47 for 47th president.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination.
The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do.
So Comey, he denies that his post was meant as a threat or implying violence, and Axios reports branded merchandise with the numbers 8647 is widely for sale. Do you expect this choice to go further in the Secret Service questioning? I mean, is Comey perhaps being singled out for retribution?
So look, this is a schoolyard grudge match. We all lived through the momentous occasion that led to Donald Trump firing Jim Comey as the director of the FBI. I don't think we need to rehash that personal relationship. The interesting legal question here is whether this qualifies as a threat, and the Supreme Court has actually spoken on this notion of what constitutes a criminally prosecutable threat. And this simply does not ring those bells. This is First Amendment protected speech. I'm not defending it. It may have well been an exercise of bad judgment on Director Comey's part, but the reality is not all speech is the sort of speech that someone can be prosecuted even for threatening a president with, and this is not even close. So this is the sort of abuse of the criminal justice system that we're seeing this administration engage in. At the same time, it claims that it's investigating weaponization of the criminal justice system by the prior administration.
My sage colleague, Joyce Vance, thank you for coming on and getting us through it. Thank you.